Several of you responded that my recent reflection on Christine Cain's book and video, 2020, Seen, Chosen, Sent. Here's the book. Struck a chord with you as well. Extending the message about looking and seeing, I thought I would open today's program with the charge or invitation that Ms. Cain makes to each Bible study participant at the end of the first week of study. But first, welcome to our February PW program. We appreciate your tuning in, and I think you're in for a real treat. A few of us have had a little time to chat with Reverend Hamilton and get to know her a bit, and I think it's going to be a special day. God sees you. He has chosen you. You are his beloved daughter and a starter on his team. You are to bear fruit and proclaim his praises, the one who has called you out of the darkness and into his marvelous light. Believing these truths is the first step to seeing and serving others. It is the beginning of your journey as a God carrier. Of course, every single one of you is already a God carrier. You already see and serve others. But I thought it was important to remind you that you are God's beloved daughter and that he has chosen you. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Your generosity of spirit truly knows no limits. And what our membership, what our circles have accomplished this year is nothing short of remarkable. We discussed your generosity in our council meeting this morning. Please know that your coordinating council is hard at work. Next month, we'll have the 2022-2023 budget available for your review, and we will also present the slate of new officers for your approval. Enough about business, though. I know you're as anxious as I am to hear today's speaker. So I'm going to turn things over now to Miranda Reynolds, PW's program chair, who will explain the logistics of today's Zoom webinar.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. When we were planning our February meeting, we thought for sure our program for sure will be in person and the Mary Marthas will be serving up a delicious meal, but here we are back on Zoom again in the webinar format, which is great for that, where you can have full focus on the speaker, but we can't all see each other. So the way it's going to work is Stephanie's going to be presenting, and you'll see her up on your screen, and I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have a question or a comment about something she has said or something she is showing, just put it right there in the chat, and I will relay it to her so that she can respond. I'm going to turn it over to Kim to give us a great introduction for our speaker today.
Thank you, Miranda. Hello, everybody. Wish I could see you all. We are delighted to welcome Stephanie Hamilton today. Stephanie is an assistant professor at VCU. She currently serves as faculty chaplain liaison for surgery, trauma, and neuro. She's the manager for bereavement services, and she's also the family communications coordinator, team leader. That sounds like at least 3 full-time jobs to me. Stephanie is a native of Kingston, Jamaica. She received her bachelor's degree from Queen's University and her master's of divinity from Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville. She and her husband, Mike, have 2 children. She enjoys dancing, camping, and digging in her yard. Stephanie has published numerous articles and presented to many organizations. I recently read an interview that Stephanie gave a couple of years ago to a medical journal that I believe was related to organ donation. And I think what she said is a glimpse into her, maybe into her life philosophy, and we'll find out. And here's what she said. People ask me how I stay vibrant and positive. My positivity comes out of my morbidity. Today could be the last day of my life, and if it is, I want it to be meaningful. To me, that's the bottom line, to live and die meaningfully. Stephanie, we are excited to hear from you. Welcome to First Presbyterian Church.
Thank you so much, Kim. Wow, that is very humbling. It is so humbling to be here. It is wonderful. And the opening reflection about seen, chosen, sent, you're going to see that's very much where I'm coming from. God sees me and has chosen me. He's chosen each one of us, and we are chosen, we're nurtured, we're sent. So it is a privilege to be here today. I'm very grateful that because of Wilson being here among us and learning and growing with us, that he connected me with you all. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I will say, Kim, you're reading that. Now I don't have to say that during the presentation, that you know, my sense of vibrancy, it's in there. So we'll just skip over that part because you've already said it, which is wonderful. Thank you. So I do have a PowerPoint I'm going to share and try to, I'm better with people than documents, but we just practiced this. So, and I've been learning a lot about Zoom. So let me get it to the slide mode and hope that my mouse cooperates. It doesn't always. There we go. Let's see. All right. Are we at the beginning? Does it say deepening and thriving, the sacred paradoxes of the pandemic? Okay, so this picture on the front is one that I actually drew some time ago. And it was a time when I was feeling sick, and there's this image of the waters, and I am reminded of Genesis and God hovering over the waters, and that out of the waters of pain, out of the abyss comes marvelous joy and life and hope. And so you see that this captures a lot. Sometimes we talk about the waters of grief, part the waters, Lord, you know, how God parted the waters. So, you know, out of it comes, anyway, I let it speak for itself. But I thought it was good to have that image there to remind us that there is work going on within us, beneath us, in the deep, deep calls to deep, as well as above and around us and within us. So there are paradoxes, and that's true of every day. So, so for me, part of what we're talking about is the realities, right? We're talking about the realities that we are each called, and that's a reality. We are each created by God, and you are unique, and so am I. And so this picture is one that I sketched in October of 2020. It says October the 12th. And my daughter, who is now, oh my goodness, 25, she invited me to be part of Inktober, where you sketch something every day in the month of October. And so every day I would sketch something, and we did it in 2020 as well as 2021. And she knows that drawing is part of how I can sometimes re-find myself. So that just gives you a glimpse of me during the pandemic. So that's one of the realities, right? Is that we're in a pandemic and it's been ongoing. And one of the realities is that I have a deep sense of gratitude, and I still have that. That has not died. It is still there. And my prayer throughout the entire pandemic has been, deepen me, Lord. And I'm learning what that means, right? Deepen me, use me, grow me, teach me. So, and how do you do that one step at a time? And how do you have grace for yourself, which I remind people of all the time, have grace for yourself. God's grace is amazing. And the more we claim that, the more we can live it. So another reality is that I serve at a level 1 trauma center. Wow. Enough said, right? And then the other reality is I need to live my life fully, the best I can with all the restrictions. And yes, I wear my shield to the grocery store because I feel safer at work than I do in the grocery store. Because here we're very strict about PPE and everything. All right, so here you go. Over there, you'll see the more complicated mask, the P100. And we were wearing that at the hospital. And then you can kind of see some of the, one of the things, the point of showing these pictures is that you really have to trust the PPE. If you're going to be visiting patients who are identified as COVID positive, you have to work through and get beyond the fear. You just have to deal with it. You have to trust that you've been taught how to don and doff. And maybe some of you are in fields where you wear PPE too, right? And you do that, or you have family members. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. I do want to say that one of the, I don't want to say beauties of the pandemic, but perhaps there's always things that work together for good, right? I have reclaimed the beauty of washing my hands, that it is a spiritual, sacred practice. You can pause, you can go, wow, these are my hands, rather than just, I gotta wash my hands, you know, oh no, I need to count to 20. But how to reclaim that it's a moment to pause and refresh and breathe. So if it forces me to slow down, how do I make the best of that? How do I go? It takes time to put this on. It takes time to take it off carefully in a way that prevents infection. And so how am I mindful? I'm reminded that it took Jesus a really long time to travel from one place to the other. And sometimes we don't take our time. We don't. Our 21st century is fast, and the pandemic forces us to slow down and think. To drink my water, I have to take this off, and then I can drink my water. And so you have to really think and be mindful. The picture by the fountain gives you a glimpse of how I cope. It's a glimpse of how I make a point. This is my favorite fountain area at VCU. I've sat here with many students and staff. If I have to have a meeting and it's beautiful outside, I try to have it outdoors, but I sometimes go to the fountain for a timeout, so I don't say things I regret. But it's a great place where I go to be renewed, and I try to introduce it to others. So these are some of the other pictures I drew right around the time during October, when I was doing Inktober 2020. And it gives you a glimpse of, it doesn't mean you have to be an artist. I am actually not very confident in my artwork. My daughter and son are what I call true artists and much bolder, but that's not the point, right? The point is I use art journaling, as I call it. I will write out the word bold, and then I'll just build on it. So right around this time in October of 2020, I really felt God was saying this stuff to me. Remember, God is God and I'm not, right? Remember that God is calling me to be bold for such a time as this. And what does that mean? Some of my gifts are very, very pastoral. And over the years, part of my growth as a professional, and even in my personal life, is how to also be prophetic. I'm really good with the pastoral. You can tell I'm kind of gentle and touchy-feely and all that good stuff, and kind. I'm known for my kindness. Well, sometimes we need to be bold with our kindness. So how to be still, how to love fiercely, how to stand firm, how to know that, yes, God's got the world. I don't have to carry the world, but I can still be powerful in my own way. Every little bit counts, and how to deepen and grow. So it just kind of gives you a glimpse of how I was processing for such a time as this. And I'm jumping now to at the end of February, and I know you can see the screen, so maybe you don't see me as much. At the end of February, when I look back in one of my journal books, I was really wrestling. I had a wonderful conversation. I'm reminded that God uses people, and I'm sure One of the things I've learned over the years is I reach out to God, but God often uses people as angels. And I was having a conversation with a good friend, and I was wrestling with, who am I? There's so many things that you can do. Somebody made a comment about all the responsibilities and roles that I have, but you want to make sure you don't lose yourself in all the roles and all the ministry that you're doing. So I started drawing things like, who are you, Stephanie? Deep is calling on to deep. Where is your heart? And at the end of February, I was just wrestling, and I was still doing all my great stuff, but deep inside of me, I thought, who am I? And am I getting lost in what people expect of me and all the responsibilities I have? And where is Stephanie? So I made a commitment to myself that I was going to draw every day in the month of March of 2021, that I needed to do that, to reclaim Stephanie, the heart of me and my calling. So this is what I drew on March the 1st, that I need to have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart, to quote Brene Brown, and firm kindness. That is at the heart of who I am, okay? That I am rooted and growing. And I'm also free, which is an interesting thing to say during a pandemic. And so these pictures, this is what I drew the next day. It's amazing when you open the well, what comes out. I simply started with a word puzzle. I love word puzzles. That's another way I cope. So I simply started with listen. And then I just started coloring. That's just who I am. It doesn't mean everybody does this, but it means this is what I do and I need to do, and I need to carve out time to do, which can be challenging. So I just started drawing and writing. Listen, be honest, be kind, simply be, and rest, make sure I rest. And this image of the woman on the waters is, you can see there's a theme here. My image of God, and we won't get into theology and whether God's male or female, but my image of God as it has developed, I'm now 58, and my image of God as it has developed is this image of whether it's male or female, and for me, I've more incorporated the female in recent years, of hovering over the waters and bringing beauty and strength out of the waters. So, and that, of course, that image is also me as I live out the calling of Emmanuel, God with me, as I navigate the waters of life and death. So rainbows, my children tease me. I drew rainbows when I was in labor. My son is going to be 27 and my daughter's 25. They're 21 months apart. And I was drawing rainbows while I was in labor, because covenant, and you can't have rainbows without clouds and rain. And that's just the way life is, right? Storms and rain are part of life. So then I drew this. Again, I started with, this is me processing the pandemic, right? This is me processing things in our department, things in the hospital that I am keenly aware. The image of the woman comes after. It's the words I start with. And so I'm journaling, right, in my way, which is my way. It doesn't have to be your way. You might not even want to journal, but I'm keenly aware of the challenges, the gifts, that I'm helpless, but yet I'm empowered. And there's the paradox, right? I'm helpless, but yet I'm empowered. I trust, and that my awareness opens up a choice. Humble steps of dependence. And you can see some of it still in pencil, because I start out with pencil and then I add some color. And then I'm counting it all joy. And then the dance of life. So the complexity can be a gift. It's confusing, it's frustrating, but it can be a gift. And so the gift of uncertainty, there is no time for anything else than the best that you've got. So how to claim that without feeling the pressure of it? It doesn't mean I have to be perfect, that you move past certainty to this realm of uncertainty. We don't know. I don't know what the next hour brings. I could do this presentation and then I could have a stroke. We don't know, right? So how to live that fully. This one's interesting. I drew this on March the 8th of last year. And here's this woman, boy, she's trying to run and do a lot of stuff on the water. It captures that sense of, I'm expectant. It's fun looking back. I don't know if you all journal, but when you look back, it's interesting to look back almost a year later and go, wow, does that mean I felt like I had the whole world in my head? What does that mean? Why did I draw that? I don't really fully know, but I do know that it shows that I'm juggling life and death, hope, sad and joyful, that it's all in there, that somehow I am seeking to stay healthy and thriving in the midst of God calling me to dance in the ocean of life, in the ocean of this hospital, in the ocean of our community. So again, you can see that this is truly a way that Stephanie speaks, and that God speaks to me through carving out time to draw and process in this way. Regardless of whether I think I'm good at it or not is irrelevant. It's that if we know we have to do something, then, and we make a commitment, I'm going to draw every day, that I just created the space for it. So this was over the next couple of days. You can see the one on the left. Thy word is a light onto my path. That is the foundation here. And that because of that, I can that creates a soothing center, a cushion of calm for me to know that God is going to light my path every day. And that energizes me. And so you see the light and you see the rainbow, and there's lots of rain, there's lots of grief, there's lots of pain. I'm doing ministry during this time with staff and patients and families. I'm navigating stuff in my own life personally. And then on the other side, you see how God is providing light onto my path. And I'm walking on that path. And this is March the 11th last year, walk by faith and not by sight, that I'm empowered to live beyond my natural ability. You all know, as women in ministry and your group, and Brick, I'm including you too, that you are empowered to live beyond your natural ability and strength, right? That God empowers us. And you can see that I'm thinking at that point, you can almost see it, that I'm thinking, do I continue on the worn path that I know really well? Is God pulling me to a new path? Do I need to branch out? Do I need to risk some new adventures in life? Because sometimes you kind of hunker down and you go with what you know, but is God calling me to some new things, to branch out in new ways? So this picture kind of captures some of what's going on in my spirit during this time. And then this one is the very next day. And again, I was mostly doing these in the evening at night. And this captures, I started out with the words, and I think this was actually inspired by some words from my devotion for the day. Golden strands of trusting, interwoven, waiting, hoping, and it's interwoven, right? And you know, the cord of 3 strands is not easily broken, right? So I started just drawing and playing around with strands that are interwoven, and that I am woven with love. You are woven with love. And that we are stronger than we realize because we are woven, we are wondrously woven. So again, you can kind of see what's going on in my heart and my spirit. Remember, I started out the month of March feeling like I was losing Stephanie. Like, what is going on? Am I just doing what is expected of me and all these responsibilities? Or is Stephanie still in her skin? Is she still connected to the core of who God is continually creating her to be? So here we go. I am connected. You can almost see that I'm becoming more connected, right? If you look at it. And so here's the strands and the threads of today. So today, almost a year later, we're now at February the 1st. What are the threads of today that God's weaving in our life? You know, how do we, as I look back at this, that's great to think this is where I was in March of 2021, but where are we today coping with the pandemic? So this picture, it's so interesting why I even felt I should draw this. Fragile bones held. Was it my fragile bones? Was it a patient or family that I was ministering with? And here I am again, it's my prayer. God, teach me wisdom. Your covenant is overarching for me. And I know that I am known and loved, and that is somehow enough. That's enough. I am known, I'm loved, and God's going to give me the truth telling. Remember, I talked about the prophetic, and God, what are ways you need me to be prophetic and speak truth with strength and kindness, but with firm backbone. So, you know, it's, you can tell the rainbow, the rain, and the fragile bones held. I'm from the Caribbean, so the ocean makes it into my pictures all the time. All right. Again, just some more glimpses I hope you're not getting tired of the pictures. Again, I write words and I just take, these are old markers that my kids, I found around the house, all these markers from when they were growing up. My daughter saw what I was doing. She said, Mom, we need to get you your own new set. You're just using all our old ones. And some of these markers need to go. But anyway, so be true, create a new path. I have a unique role, life, the narrative, the creative. I have my own expertise. And one of the things that I've gotten a lot of feedback about over the years is that I have a gift for creating safe spaces, creating room, bringing together teams. And I have this way of being. It's a gift that God has given me that I need to continue to use. And to do that, I need to always make room for how I'm growing and create safe spaces for myself, or I can't do that for anybody else. This day was my son's birthday, March the 20th. And this woman looks a little weird, but that's okay. I'm a little weird too. But I started out with celebrate. Today, Jonathan, my son, turns 26. I have much joy and gratitude. Yes, we're in a pandemic, but we still need to celebrate, right? And one of the things many grief practitioners and perhaps people who come and presented to your group have talked about is that there's so much focus on grief and challenge and pain and conflict that we really have to carve out times to celebrate and not feel guilty about celebrating. Yes, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of death, but we still need to celebrate. So celebrating springtime, it's also the first day of spring. I love to dig in the dirt, as was noted, planting seeds. Carrie, my daughter, is very proactive with gardening and getting seeds ready back in January and February, so they'll start growing in March. So just how to claim the beautimous day, right? And to trust that God's going to lead one day at a time. So listen, breathe, pause, celebrate, to make sure that we build that in. So I was building that in. And the next day, I was doing a lot of ministry. That particular Sunday, I was working at the hospital, and I had much gratitude. I was in situations where I provided prayer shawls. I helped a family with locks of hair and a heartbeat in a bottle for their loved one who was dying. I worked with the nurses and the medical team, and it was incredibly meaningful, you know, and this is my calling, right? And I love that song, You Call Me Out Upon the Water. And so really just, you can see where at the end of the day, it would be lovely to just create a safe space for me to process this, right? This is what my day looked like today, and I have much gratitude, and how to claim that and create space for it. So this is a little different. This is my son many years ago. We go to Kiptopeke State Park on the eastern shore of Virginia. And my children are really dynamic, and I have, ever since they've grown up, I've said, God, they're yours. I just have the privilege of birthing them and being their mom, but they're really your children. And Jonathan is, both my children are creative in their own ways, but he loves to do things like this. So I put this here to say, I've used this example of balance. Many of us talk about we need balance in our life. And you don't just find balance for the entire day or the entire month. It's a daily, moment by moment, intentional thing. This particular day, he thought, I want to go out and set this up before the tide comes in. And it involved a lot of work, walking along the beach, finding wood, digging dirt, digging sand to get the wood in, and setting up the line, right? And there are many naysayers that say, why bother do it? You're probably just going to be able to maintain that balance for like half a second, and then it's gone. Well, what Jonathan taught me, and I was game to go out early in the morning with him on the beach, and our daughter helped, and then my husband joined us, is this is something that brought him joy, that was meaningful to him, and that he wanted to do. And if the joy of it lasted 10 seconds, then it was worth it. And it taught me so much, because there can be a lot of naysayers that say, why bother? Sleep in. Just sit on the beach. Why go to all the trouble to do that? And for a balancing act, the reality is, I could think I've found balance right now, and I could get a phone call in 10 minutes that knocks that balance right out of place. So how to make the most of the moment. And that's what my son Jonathan was teaching me, that for one fine moment. And the diligence, the perseverance, the discipline that it took him to get to this moment. There's a great picture afterwards of him doing, falling off, but it took discipline and determination. And then you can regroup and go, what did that teach me? What did that teach me that I can do it? And so one of the things that I'm often saying nowadays is when people say, Stephanie, how are you? I'll say, I am trusting moment by moment, and I'm focused on doing the next right thing. I am trusting that God is going to show me for this next moment. For today, the next right thing was to be here with you all today. When I'm finished this, God's going to show me. I have a plan and an idea of what I'm going to do, but I could get a phone call that'll say, we need you at the hospital, or a team member died, or whatever. So how to trust that God's going to show us, do the next right thing. And of course, lots of hymns capture that. One day at a time, sweet Jesus. There's so many things that capture that. All right. For me, and I'm hoping for you all that this can teach us, I was asked to do a presentation for faculty wellness. And one of the things that I'm aware of is that we have a lot of intentions and we need to be intentional. And I started taking note of all the re's in our life: recognize, renew, refresh, recreate, recreation, recalibrate, remember. What does it mean? I needed to remember that I needed to be here today, right? It wouldn't be great if you all turned up and I didn't, right? So we need to remember. We need to remember who we are and whose we are. We need to remember that we are gifts. We need to remember that grace really is amazing and it's meant for us. We need to be resilient. So I started looking at all the re's and how we can teach each other to pay attention. What does it mean to remain? Where did that word come from? To remain, the vine, the branches, to remain true to who we are. So I would invite you to pay attention to that. For me, resilience is a big buzzword nowadays in healthcare settings and education. What does it mean to be resilient? So I looked up the word. Why not Google it, right? And the Latin, I'm really big into languages and words, and resilience has to do with elasticity, and it's actually more of an industrial term. You want products to be resilient, but I encourage you to look it up. But over the years, when my kids were growing up and we watched different movies and stuff, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie with, I identified with this lady on the screen. Elastigirl is her name, and she was the mom of these fine children who all had gifts. And I, over the years, have joked about the elasticity that being a parent, being someone who is also the sandwich generation. I've lived with my in-laws for 24 of our 34-year marriage. So my hubby and I are caregivers. We're both chaplains. You have to be resilient, right? You have to have elasticity and also the ability to rebound and recover. So I often jokingly say the look on her face says, you want me to do what? You want me to be even more elastic or flexible? How? That's not possible, because we're not Legos. We're not superheroes. We are human beings. We're flesh and blood. I bleed, I cry, I crumble. As Sandy Patty, I think, who is some of the songs I like to listen to. She talks about the warrior is really a child. I'm forgetting the singer. But, there are times I have to go to my room and weep and cry and crumble and get on my knees, right? People see the strong, vibrant, the Elastigirl, but we are actually complex and wounded and wondrous. How do we hold all that up? So part of what I do, and I've done that for us as well, I've done this for staff, I've done this for our department, and I do it for myself, is we have been intentional to create safe spaces for myself, for others. We would set up these in the chapel. some safe stations. And as chaplains, we give a lot, and we need to make sure that we are creating spaces for us to be refreshed and renewed. So it's as simple as, and I had some nurses and others say, oh my goodness, I could just take some dirt out of the yard and get a jar, and my kids could do this. You know, when you feel like you're filled up and you need to pour out some before you explode, pour out a little bit, whatever you're carrying, name it. Right now, I'm carrying frustration or grief. I'm frustrated with the school system. I'm frustrated with my teacher. I'm frustrated at myself, and I need to pour a little bit of that out and pour out what you need. It's a simple thing. You can create your own simple rituals, right? We do a lot of rituals, whether at church or otherwise. So this is some of what is helpful. And you can create your own stuff that's helpful, but I found it. So this is another one of the pictures that I did in March of last year. Again, you can see that I am really seeking, deepen me, Lord, deepen my roots. I'm rooted in you. I provide shelter for others and rest, and create shelters and rest for me. I am firmly grounded. The tree is not going to topple over if I'm the tree, but I'm also branching out, and I'm fluid with the winds. And you can tell that it was springtime, and I had certain trees in mind when I colored this, right? And sometimes it's not the product of the picture, it's the process of simply coloring and writing and what it does for me that deepens me. The other thing I've used for folks, and if you can see me, you'll see I have a sponge in my hand, is one of the images that has helped me over the years and has helped me in the pandemic, is that like a sponge, we soak up a lot. You soak up a lot in your life. And we need to be aware, because we need to practice ways to squeeze out our own sponge. Because if we don't, we're going to leak everywhere. So, you know, if you have a sponge and it's leaking and you don't want it to leak, it's not very helpful. You have to pause and squeeze it out. So I found that helpful for me, that I soak up a lot of grief, a lot of stress, and squeezing out the sponge can look differently. It can be pruning a tree, it can be praying, it can be singing, it can be dancing in my living room. It can be all of the above as a way to squeeze it out before I do the next thing. So be intentional, and that's what I've had to do. And then the only other thing I would say is we all talk about what are the complexities of this world. There's conflicts in our own community, in our nation, across the world. Well, here are two leaders. And I know that Desmond Tutu recently died. These are two leaders that faced world conflict, and oh my goodness, leaders on the national, international realm. But this shows them taking time to dance. And I thought, how powerful. It doesn't mean you have to be a dancer, you all. You might say, Stephanie, I'm not resonating with any of this. But the point is to take time. That no matter what ministry we're doing internationally, nationally, in our community, in our own backyard, that we can learn from leaders such as these. And we can also learn from our children, ourselves, and trust yourself that you're becoming all of who God wants you to be and is creating you to be for such a time as this in the season of your life where you are. So that's some of what I'm learning. And so I wanted to end with that picture again that we had at the beginning of the image of out of the flame and the waters, both above and below. There's this vibrancy and this dance, no matter how turbulent the waters are. So I'm going to stop sharing unless you need me to go back over something, so that if there are questions, if there's more you want me to say, there are a lot of things I want to say, but I thought I would let these pictures guide us, and I think captures the essence of what I wanted to say.
Awesome, Stephanie. I'm just going to remind everybody, if you have any questions or comments that you want Stephanie to address, please do just put them right in the chat. I'll kind of kick us off. I mean, that last analogy about the sponge, Stephanie, I've been taking notes kind of the whole time of like things I'd like to apply to my own life. You know, a lot of us aren't dealing with the levels of grief and despair and isolation that you're maybe seeing there at the hospital, but the sponge analogy, I've got small kids. That makes me feel like I should maybe squeeze a little out before I go pick them up today. One thing, I knew you were coming, and you hear your title, grief, and it's like, am I gonna cry? Is this gonna be so sad? And you are just radiating this love and warmth and joy and need for self-reflection and self-care. I am curious, though, if there are any stories kind of from the trenches. You kind of lead with the rainbow, and then go in for the clouds and the rain. Are there any stories that you have there, situations with patients or even with the nurses?
Yes, most definitely.
I'd love to hear some of that.
Yes. So the first one that comes to mind, and there's lots, there's so many. I remember a 90-year-old lady who was COVID positive and was dying. And her healthcare agent, her power of attorney, was an older lady who couldn't be here. And they didn't want her to be alone. And I went in, and again, you trust the PPE, you put it on. And I had great sadness knowing that this is how a 90-year-old lady is dying. And I had the privilege of being with her and singing hymns. She didn't die in my visit, but I was struck by that, that I had the privilege of being there with her. And I knew from the staff and from her power of attorney person what was important to this lady who couldn't talk. One of the other ones that comes to mind for me, and it's so insightful, I was going to include this picture. There's so many I want to include. This one, you see, doesn't have a lot of color, right? I had so much pain that day. And there were so many tears, and what I wrote that day was, we did everything we could. Thank you. She knew it was coming. I was with the staff who were deeply impacted. They had taken care of this young man. He had been in and out of the hospital for years with the medical respiratory ICU team, and they knew he was dying. And his mother knew he was dying. But this staff had forged such strong relationships with the mother as well as with the person who died. And some of them had watched Disney with him. And it was such an amazing opportunity to have, it took the mother a while to get here when he died. And so we did a support time for the team around his bedside. And I think I saw somebody just put in the chat, what about, with the physicians and the staff? So we can talk about this in a minute, but my goal, I could do staff care and support 24/7. We have a new director who just started in August, and new chair. She serves both roles, director of spiritual care and chair of patient counseling. She knows that I could just do team member support, physicians, nurses, housekeeping, you name it, 24/7. That's my passion amongst all the other things I do. So one of the big griefs for staff, as I think you've heard and seen in the news, and perhaps some of you are staff members as well in hospital settings, is it really grieves the staff that families can't be here and that patients are having to feel so lonely and isolated in addition to what they're dealing with. So there's just layers of grief and moral distress for staff, and it really is hard. So as chaplains, we have sought specific ways. There is a thing I wrote up that will be sent to you all that will give you some more glimpses. There've been we as a department not last March, it would have been the March before, there you go. So March of 2020 really looked at what are specific interventions we can do with staff, what are creative things we can do, developing meditation videos, doing music on the units, just what are ways in the midst of things, but just also afterwards or at other times, what our staff needs and how can that be meaningful for them. I hope that helps. But anyway, so to go back, staff shared about this young man, they shared stories. And the timing was beautiful because it took the mom a while to get here. And one of the physicians met mom in the parking deck. They were that dedicated, right? And escorted her up. And she was able to say her goodbyes, you know, that kind of thing. So there have been babies there. And the thing to remember, which I think you all know, is that car wrecks continue to happen, falls continue to happen. People come in and they're embarrassed because they fell while they were getting down Christmas decorations. You know, so in the middle of a pandemic, all the other ailments and problems, people are dying of strokes and heart attacks, and their loved ones are limited. The hospital has been really good about, if it's end of life, to really look at honoring people being able to come to the bedside and say their goodbyes. And so the restrictions are in place for visiting for everybody's safety, but for end of life situations, the staff really looks at being more fluid with that. And that's been consistent as well. Other things, am I covering some of what you're asking?
Yes, you just received a compliment that you are a very talented artist. I would agree. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine what most of us would look like up there. And speaker two, there's a question as to, do you assist at MCC?
MCC.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd know what that meant.
Let me think of different initials. So ACC is the Ambulatory Care Clinic. Trying to think what MCC stands for. Tell me, does it say?
I'm gonna have.
That's okay.
Back in there.
Sometimes I have to just, my own brain is very human. I have my lapses too.
Well, you're throughout the entire hospital down there?
Right. So just so that you know, so I'm the liaison from our department for, like, I've done staff support with Life Evac, the helicopter crews. I'm the liaison over many years. I first started at VCU in 2000. And so I'm the liaison for the emergency department, trauma, neurosurgery, surgery. So if those teams need extra support, I mean, chaplains by nature give support to staff as well as patients and families. So any chaplain responding to a situation, no matter where it is located. But we also give support in the clinics. We have chaplains designated for Massey Cancer Center, for palliative care, the heart unit. Massey Cancer Center, there we go, maybe that's what it is. So Massey Cancer Center has their own designated chaplain, but I still do support with them. It really depends, especially since part of what I do is bereavement. You know, we have, if you pull up our website, the patient counseling, we have a large group. Chaplaincy is very well respected at VCU and very, very interwoven in the fabric of VCU over many years. We have a large department. We train chaplains, as you know, from Wilson coming here to do an internship. So we have chaplain interns, chaplain residents, staff chaplains, faculty chaplains. We do research, we do presentations, we do bereavement, you know. A large institution like VCU, very few large hospitals do bereavement follow-up and have a bereavement program that follows up with families and sends cards and invites people for services and that kind of stuff. We recently had our annual service to remember team members who died in 2021, and I coordinate that. And we remembered 20 staff who died in 2021. In 2020, we had 32 team members who died. So, and again, it's not all COVID related. Some people were retired, but their impact is still felt, right? Yeah, I will say, I see the chat about Kin knew what she was talking about when she said it sounds, well, one of the things that our new director has done, I actually needed to update you because I'm no longer the manager for the family communication coordinators. We're streamlining because one of my goals is to not have quite so many roles. And that's one of her goals too, is how can we streamline so that you can really focus in and hopefully advocate for more staff so that that responsibility is still being done, but by another person, get another full-time employee or part-time to do that. You know, that's a struggle across many departments, across many professions, is you're supposed to be working part-time, but you're really doing full-time work. Or many of you perhaps can resonate with that over your career or currently in your life. So yes, I am at a time in my life where I've been doing chaplaincy for, I think, 25 years, perhaps. And I am looking at the slow train, how to slow it down. And I have been slowing it down compared to what I used to do. I look back and I say, who is that zealous young lady? But clearly opportunities like this, I love and welcome. And it gives me great joy and meaning to share and hopefully empower you. You know, I am very human and I have my moments, as I hope is evident, where I need to cry and weep. I want you to know that by the end of March, I had no desire to draw. Suddenly one day I was like, I have no desire to draw today. I have no need to draw. It was amazing. I was like, okay, I needed to draw and I needed to art journal. And I can't tell you the last time I've done that. Every now and then I'll do it. So I want you to know what you saw was out of the depth of feeling like I was losing myself. Every now and then I need to do that, but not with that intensity, right? So it shows the need was great as to why I did it. I hope that makes sense.
That's incredible. So
I don't do this every
what are you
day.
doing to replace it?
Pardon?
What are you doing to replace it? You know, you said
Well, and I do a variety of things, right? I dig in the dirt. I remember making a major decision while I was chopping wisteria. You know, you pray for God to guide you, and then the answer comes when you're cutting the grass or when you're chopping wisteria or something like that. And I remember I had been praying and discerning, and one day I was chopping wisteria that was strangling a tree, because wisteria is beautiful, but it takes over and it kills the tree, right? Well, there's a sermon for you. And I remember I was chopping the wisteria, freeing this tree. And this was years ago. This was in 2015 or 16, I remember. And I suddenly realized, I need to send that email. I need to pursue this option in my life. And it came at a moment when I was chopping wisteria because God was showing me, right? I was praying, show me. And then I listened. I thought it was beautiful that I was the one who was being unentangled, just like the tree was from the wisteria. So sometimes I read a lot of novels, which is interesting. I play with little rocks. I have silly putty right here. I draw. I light candles when I need to. I cry a lot. And I dance. I stretch. I do yoga. I call up someone and I say, I need to talk. One of my strategies, if I'm feeling in a funk, is I'll look at my contact list and I'll think, who can I reach out to? And just text and say, thinking of you and sending strength. They don't know I'm going through a tough time, but after I've done that a couple of times, I feel better. Thinking of you, hope you're doing all right. Just want you to know you're loved. And that strengthens me. So I think we all need to have a wide array. People talk about a toolbox. No one thing. I mean, yes, prayer, like every breath of prayer. I mean, you know, like God, guide me during this presentation. You know, God, you know, that it's just part of, if any of you see Fiddler on the Roof, you know, Tevye is always talking to God. It's just constant. So that it's constant, that we're listening, we're in communication. But definitely, I am fragile, but I'm strong. And that's the complexity of it. And how to say, okay, God. And I really try to pay attention. Who did I bump into today? What was God teaching me through them? Pay attention, slow down. Bumping into that respiratory therapist who said, Stephanie, I've been meaning to reach out to say da, 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 da. I did a debriefing with some of the helicopter folks after one of the terrible the buggy accident where folks were killed. And, you know, they were intentional to ask for support. And I was intentional to provide it, even if it's a couple of weeks after, which is often when you need it, not just also in the moment. So those are all privileges, but I make sure I take care of myself or I can't do that stuff. I used to joke that I'm not Superwoman, and every time I pull the S off my chest, it's like a magnet, it comes back. Well, my own growth has been that I'm having to pull it off less because it's not coming back. I'm able to say, God, I've given up being Superwoman. I have just let it go. You know that great song from Frozen, Let It Go? You know.
I love the permission you're giving to us, to really to give, but also to allow ourselves to receive and to rejuvenate and refresh, so that we can be our best selves. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome. And if you're like me, growing up in the church, it was all about serving and giving and reading about Jesus taking time and getting away from the crowd was huge for me. I was like, oh my word, Jesus needed to do this? Even when they said, Master, that person, he's like, he kept walking. I was like, wow, Jesus needs to get away and stay away for a certain period of time. More so do I. And to not feel guilty about it.
That's right.
Not feel guilty. We are a temple of the Holy Spirit, and we need to not be an empty temple. So there you go.
Well, thank you again so much for this. What a positive, wonderful way to have a little break in our day here. So thank you for joining us. It's been such a treat. Blair, can I turn it over to you to kind of close us down here?
Mute. Let me unmute. Okay, I'm back. Stephanie, where do I start? I just love it when things come together and make it appear as if we planned and practiced and coordinated this as a team for weeks. Those in our congregation who knew my late husband knew that his mantra and marching orders for his own life and the message he gave to everyone else was, remember who you are. So when you focused on that word, my heart absolutely soared to hear his words in your voice. It is so easy to see why people describe you as vibrant, joyful, and one who strives to serve with a sense of purpose. You have certainly inspired us today, and we're so grateful to have had the opportunity to spend this time with you. It did indeed, at least for me, feel like a very safe space. Maybe you've even inspired some of us to consider journaling in a new and different way. We just are so grateful for your having been here. Before I close this with prayer, I wanted to give all of you an update on one of our PW sisters. My phone rang Sunday evening, and what did it say on the screen? But Missy Ryan. Missy was calling me from Sheltering Arms to apologize for not reporting sooner that she is ready and able to fulfill her responsibility as chair of the Honorary Life Award Committee. She just didn't want me to worry. You can imagine I almost dropped the phone. If anyone is not aware, Missy suffered a stroke in her kitchen on January 8th. She credits the quick reaction of her husband, Jim, the rapid response from paramedics and the ER team at St. Mary's, the encouragement and guidance of therapists at Sheltering Arms, and first and foremost, the grace of God with the remarkable progress she has made. I told the council earlier, she laughed. She's Missy. She's hoping to be back at home later this week. And I want you to know that, as is our custom, we are coordinating a meal sign up for anyone who is eager to be of help. Missy did want me to let you know how grateful she is. She said, please convey my gratitude to everyone for the cards, the calls, the prayers. She swears that she felt every single prayer that came her way. So in the coming months, when you see a post from Missy in First News asking for your recommendations for the 2022 Honorary Life Award recipient, we expect you to respond. If she can chair the committee, you can take the time to think of a deserving woman who needs to be recognized this year. Now, if you will join me in prayer, I'll close our meeting. Father God, you see us with all of our shortcomings, our frailties, our pain, and our fears. You choose us not for our abilities or our worthiness, but simply because we are the beloved daughters you created. As we go about our daily lives, we ask that you equip us to be the God carriers you need. Give us the grace and strength and initiative in your holy name to bring a little brightness, a little courage, a little hope into the lives of every person we encounter, just like Stephanie does. Help us to see and never to overlook those who are discouraged, anxious, or suffering, be they family, friends, or total strangers. As we begin this new month, the month of love, and are surrounded by Valentines, may we remember that each one of us is your love letter to a broken world. Your message is written not on stone tablets or even in ink on pretty paper. Your message of joy and hope is written on our hearts. With love and gratitude, we carry your message out into the world. We pray this in the name of your beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.